Good evening. I'm Reggie Warren, COO and Vice President of Operations of Come Out with Pride Orlando. You're watching a seat at the table, a prideful retrospective. Tonight, we have four amazing guests here on the panel with you, and let's introduce them now. First, we have Gina Duncan. She has 30 years of career in banking, a regional manager with Wells Fargo, president of the NBA Pride Chamber of 2010-2012, and state director of Transgender Equality for Equality Florida from 2014 to present. Welcome, Gina.
Good evening, Reggie. Good evening, everyone. It's so good to be here with you. I'm looking forward to tonight.
We're happy to have you here. Next, we have Darren Charles, over 35 years in entertainment industry, 16 years as a dancer with the Walt Disney Company, entertainment for Princess Cruises and Marv Griffin Resorts, 40 years experience in corporate retail management and purchasing, and currently a talent production assistant for the Screen Actors Guild Award show. Welcome, Darren.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you guys for having me. I'm so happy to be a part of tonight's panel.
Thank you for being here with us, Darren. Next, we have Debbie Simmons, the co-owner of Shelby Press Print and Copy since 1993. President of the Metropolitan Business Association Pride Chambers, 1992 to 2008. President and producer of Come Out with Pride for 2005, 2006, 2007, and 2008. And developed and produced the Central Florida's GLBT History Project in 2005 to preserve and chronicle the GLBT movement here in Orlando.
Hey, everybody. That was a mouthful, Reggie.
Welcome, Debbie.
You said short bio. That wasn't short. Thank you.
Can you... Okay, guys, just to let you know, we are all working remotely in this interview, and Wi-Fi is not everyone's best friend today. So hang in with us as we go through this process, and hopefully we'll have a great conversation here tonight. Debbie, we'll be back to you soon. And last, we have Dr. Dave Baker Hargrove. He's the first Come Out with Pride president and the creator of Come Out with Pride as a legal entity with being separated from the Pride Chamber, the past president of the Pride Chamber Board, founder, co-CEO, president of 26 Health, 25 years as a therapist in the local community. He also organized community mental health response for the post-shooting and a disaster mental health first responder at the World Trade Center, September 11th. Welcome, Dr. Dave.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me.
So I'm so glad to see you all here today. How are you guys holding up with all the changes?
Good. Hunker down.
I'm lucky to love where I live, and so staying at home all the time works for me.
That's wonderful. So the first thing that I know that really came up when we decided to have this conversation, it's been suggested that a need for the LGBTQ plus community in Orlando really didn't emerge until after Anita Debbie Bryant's infamous tirade. What are your thoughts? Was that really a time that Orlando came together to organize a movement? Gina, are you able to give your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit more in Debbie's world, but I think from that moment and, in galvanizing the community, moments of tension oftentimes bring out the best in engagement and people coming out to stand for what they, stand up for what they stand for and to certainly push back against discrimination in any of its forms. So, since that time, I think we've seen in Orlando that it's been a progression of the community continuing to grow, to evolve, to be united with our elected officials and in collaboration with our law enforcement agencies to where we are today, to where the City Beautiful is certainly, one of the best places to live as an LGBTQ person.
I love that. And Debbie, can you have any more to add on this?
Yeah, I didn't really hear whose name you mentioned.
We're still having trouble. I'm sorry, we're still having trouble hearing you, Debbie.
You can't hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
She didn't hear whose name you mentioned.
Yeah.
Anita Bryant.
Oh, her.
Oh, here. Didn't
Oh,
hit her in
boy.
the face with a pie way back when? No.
Oh, yes. She was quite a character, to say the very least. That seems like a million years ago now. I have memories, but they are very, very vague. That was back, I actually was born in Miami, so I remember, but I haven't really thought about her very much in a long time. I did read something about her a number of years ago. I think I looked back to see if she was alive. Yeah. I know that she, like a lot of people are that are in opposition to our community. It's always, to me, a lot of insecurity on their part. That's what I saw with her too, and a lot of the others that I won't name, that we've seen over the years. The most vocal opponents of our community, well, sometimes they even come out later. We find out that they are from our community, which is kind of ironic. I don't think Anita Bryant was, though.
No. But a fun fact, Anita Bryant's stand-in filming double still lives in Florida.
Yeah.
Had a business here for many, many years. And her son was an actor here in Florida. And he is part of our community. He's out and proud gay man. So it's like Kevin Bacon, 7 Degrees of Separation type thing.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, thank you guys for that insight. You had some really good points there. So this is going to be, I think, a question for Dr. Dave. How did the process of having a Pride kind of begin once you guys kind of separated from the Pride Chamber? How did that process go?
Well, so at the time, Pride, when I took over, I think Pride was in its 4th year, Debbie, 4th?
Yeah,
So
2008.
2005, yeah. So
we had 5, 6, and 7. You did it 8, which was the 4th year.
Yeah. So, so it was just starting to get its legs. We just moved to Lake Eola, I think maybe the year before.
Correct.
And, it was kind of shaping up to like, wow, this could be big. And, and so then I would talk to other board chairs that were of other chambers throughout the country. Mm-hmm. And they would, and so without question, all of them said, yeah, you running Pride is the worst idea ever. It's going to ruin your chamber. The chamber will be eaten up by the event. And I actually started to see that happen. And so, that's when I made the decision to make Pride its own legal entity and set up its own board. But the reality is that was the really stark transition that exists today was multiple years in the making, like really during Gina's watch, where that separation really started to come more in earnest. And then I think it finally crystallized under Lou, where there was now there was actually 2 different board presidents, which for me and Gina's successor, we were the same. We were still the same person. We were just trying to bring other people together. We were trying to get 2 different groups, so that it wouldn't all, not everyone's attention would be diverted from one to the other. So that's kind of how that came about. But it took a lot of years to kind of get to where it is now.
Oh, and I think it's important to tag team on that, Dr. Dave, and right on, in that Come Out with Pride, as you know, is a huge undertaking. It's a year-round effort of a lot of volunteers, a lot of amazing people putting in a lot of time to make Come Out with Pride a success. And during Dr. Dave's time and my time, we saw that because we were so heavily involved in Come Out with Pride, that the chamber side of what we were doing was suffering. And in doing this split off, we found that it really was the right thing to do, because we could have a dedicated team. At the time was headed up by the vice president of the chamber and had its own working board. And by splitting off, we could see that we could really focus on growing the chamber and working to benefit business owners. So during that time, due to a lot of work from a lot of talented and innovative people, we moved into our own bricks and mortar. We had our own building at the time, and I was so proud of that. Patty Sheehan cut the ribbon with us when we had our grand opening. A lot of great ideas emerged from that, to where we had our cocktails and conversation, which were regular mixers that we had at the chamber. The red groups grew from that, referral exchange groups where people could support each other within the chamber in growing their businesses. We became more involved with the NGLCC. And that year we had so many more businesses who were certified as minority businesses. And that year we were chosen as NGLCC's up-and-comer chamber for the country. So we saw that thought process of splitting it off and focusing on the chamber to support our small businesses really paid benefits early and continues to this day.
That's really good. I mean, these are a lot of things that I'm learning, even as I've been on the board for a few years now. There's always something you learn from this. And now that we know that it took about 4 years to even make it to the park at Lake Eola, Debbie, what did the first Pride look like? What got us to the point that we can get to Lake Eola in the fourth year?
Well, for a number of years, we had participated in the parade, and at the same time, and we weren't organizing it, the NBA or the Pride Chamber wasn't. And at the same time, we were doing business expos, which are similar to what you see with the marketplace in the park in Lake Eola right now, with Come Out with Pride. We were doing that. We were doing a number of things. And when the Pride Parade fell apart, the other previous organizers, over, like I say, a number of years, we were trying as best as we could to support that organization and keep that afloat, because our board was very reluctant to take on an event, just the parade itself. In addition to that, we didn't want to step on the toes of the organizers. So once it did fall apart, which was in June of 2005, when they announced that there wasn't going to be a parade, there was a lot of rumblings in the community about the lack of participation, the lack of organization. The parade was kind of an embarrassment at that time. It really was. And when it fell apart, the board had been talking about this. This has been on our agenda for years. About doing something. We just, like I say, didn't want to step on the toes. So when it fell apart, everybody said, okay, we need to do this. So a handful of us on the board got together, and we got together with 2 of the previous parade organizers that were part of the committee, and some of the students from the Gay and Lesbian Bisexual Student Union out at UCF. They were always doing a National Coming Out event, National Coming Out Day. So we got together and we pulled it together and did the first event in, 3 months, I think. It was
very quick.
It was very quick. And you know what you were talking about Pride, Come Out with Pride consuming the chamber. That was a gradual process too. And I know it consumed my life. And I think that I had just gotten enough of a boost. I had gotten my battery charged by 2005. So it worked out. I was trying for quite some time to leave, to retire. And that really, it boosted me again. And to see what evolved over the course of those few years, in 2007, with a culmination of Jennifer Holiday, we had Hudson, the 6, I think it was 5. 5, right?
Yeah, she was there the first year.
Right, 2005. But when Jennifer Holliday got up on the stage and performed 2007 at Lake Eola, the first year at Lake Eola, and we saw the magnitude of people that were there that year. I think that was 45,000 people. And the parade had dwindled down to, several hundred people before we took it over. And I hate to say take it over because we really created something new. And seeing all those people and how it affected the community, and then hearing the stories from everybody, that again, I think that boosted all of us. So even though it was overwhelming, all of the responsibility to create the event, to follow through, and that kept us charged up.
Except we didn't have any money, and it was horrible,
No
heavy,
money.
awful work, sweaty, gross work.
We did the garbage, okay?
Oh, I
yeah.
know.
Remember picking up the garbage at the History Center? Oh boy, because we did it at the History Center the first 2 years, the actual festival, and so we were the garbage carriers and the raising the money, right, and the whole 9 yards. There's probably about a dozen of us, and we were worn out. And then we had to start again. We had to do the post-mortem and, look at what we had done, how to improve it, where we wanted to go, how we were going to raise the money. Back to your point, David, that really was the point, was raising the money.
And the biggest motivator for me for raising the money was not to do all that heavy lifting work, because it was
Amen.
so awful.
Yes.
I was like, I want to hire someone to do this because this is awful.
And lugging the tables and
oh my gosh,
all that, the tents, and then all the barricades. Yeah, it was just ridiculous. But hats off to people volunteering, like Gina said. I mean, you see the best come out in people. We really developed even stronger friendships and relationships, and with one another, and then with the community. And then so now here you are, Reggie. And when I watched you in the first session of this seat at the table, I felt like I had birthed a child.
So when we talk about raising the funds and things like that, how did it resonate with the community? Did local business, you have pushback that first kind of beginning of the Pride, or was the community businesses rallying behind you?
It was tight. The biggest thing that happened at the very beginning was we were at the Parliament House, and we had our first event on the stage with our Come Out with Pride shirts on, and it was like the reveal, like tonight is the reveal for this year. And we talked about the fact that we needed funding, that we were going to have to pay for a lot of different things. And I'll never forget Susan Unger, the co-owner of the Parliament at the time, and I don't even know if she is now. She stood up and said, "We'll give you $10,000." And at that moment, that really, I think, again, that was a charge for us. We knew that we were going to be able to go out and raise more money. And that was the biggest influx of money we got that year. But I mean, that made a big difference for us. I can't remember if that was 5 or 6. See, it all kinds of
It was, I think it was 5. I think it was 5. Yeah. So, people talk now about the corporatization of Pride, but back then that didn't exist. No. We had no corporate support. And we had really most of the event came together through the generous support of the MBA chamber members. Right. And, who are mostly all small businesses. And so they gave what they could. And we certainly
donated their services too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And so it was really, the first couple of years, financially, it was really kind of put together with chewing gum and chicken wire, really, because none of that existed back then. And so, and we were, but I think it's fair to say that we were really proud of what we were able to accomplish on such a limited budget.
And that was always, remember, the running discussion was what we were going to do. The small businesses, like you said, they were the backbone of everything. for the organization and for the beginnings of Come Out with Pride. And we wanted to be very, very careful about the corporatization, like you said, because we did not want just corporate money without the policies in place. We didn't want that for them to take over our event just because they wanted our dollars that we spend, because it had already been, proven in the demographics. And so that was a real gentle process too, with getting corporate support of Come Out with Pride financially. And then, continuing to instill in them that, look, we expect policies with your corporation that are going to be non-discriminatory.
Yeah, and I think picking up that thread is that during my tenure, I think we really saw corporations really step up. The major corporations like Disney and Darden and EA Sports and those corporations, but we also saw that it and we said we weren't going to use this word, but it intersected with the chamber in the fact that we found that we were doing more and more events. And as Debbie says, to ensure that our corporate sponsors were truly walking the talk, we would have joint events where we would have a mixer with the chamber and a particular company's ERG. So we'd get to know each other, we'd check out, Come Out with Pride, and know that their diversity and inclusion policies truly were in such a way that those companies were who we wanted to partner with and be in the parade and help them be visible advocates of our community.
Correct. I know that Dr. David said something about being on a shoestring kind of budget, putting things together. I heard that maybe Darren can help us with this, that Joel Strack was a performer at Disney and ended up having a big footprint on the community. Can you tell us some more about him and his involvement?
Well, Joel, ever since, he went to Disney and created a huge family there, and he was always out and proud of who he was, but he was also a great unifier between the straight community and the gay community, and he could totally take someone who was against us and bring them to sit at the table with us and love and honor and cherish and respect us. But he started seeing things in other communities that he loved and he enjoyed, and he wanted to bring that here to Orlando so that we could also enjoy that also, as far as also starting the Orlando Gay Chorus and, of course, Red Shirt Day at Disney. He had a big hand in that. One of the great stories of Joel and his time is when he started, he was, one of the first to start the parade back in its original days before it became Come Out with Pride. Like you guys were discussing, everything was done on a shoestring, chewing gum, and a budget. They had to have like $500 for road closures and barricades. And Joel actually took that money out of his banking account and savings to take and pay for the road closures and the barricades so that the parade actually could take and go down Orange Avenue. And then, like you guys said too, them also, with everyone else, there's our great Joel. Everyone that was a part of that community and that original group would, make sure everything came off with, without a hitch as much as they could. But he was always a great advocate too, regardless of what it was. If you needed Joel and it was a great cause for our community, he would be there. Yeah. When the Pulse massacre happened, Joel literally sang at every single funeral. He carried a change of clothes in his car, and at a moment's notice, if they requested him or members of the chorus to be there, he would be there to take and sing for the funeral. He advocated for many of our politicians in the community because he was a part of the Rainbow Coalition that was here, that Margot Dixon and everyone was a part of, and still continues to be. If you talk to Patty Sheehan, she will tell you that he was the driving force in her getting into politics. And, without him nudging her along, we wouldn't have such a great city commissioner in Patty Sheehan. And you know, he's with us right here. I'm in charge of the where, oh, there we are. So, you know, we had to have him here for the meeting, but you know, I get to bestow of him here in Florida, and his family has him back home also, so that he can always still be a part of Come Out with Pride.
Joel was one of those people that when I met him in 1991, him and LeJune Perrin, Phyllis Murphy, Chris Alexander, Patty, all of those people to me were like so courageous. They were the ones and gave us the courage to start the MBA, the Metropolitan Business Association, in '92 and walk in the second parade. And Joel was irreplaceable.
Very
truly.
true. And the one thing that always also made Joel the person that he was, and being able to unify and unite and cross those bridges and barricades, is that he never forgot your name. And once he was introduced to you, he would remember your name. So that way he was able to take and, you know, start that conversation at whatever chair or table that he was at. And, you know, that definitely was a blessing and a gift that he had, that enabled, you know, all of us to take and reap the rewards from him being able to take and do that.
Yeah, and he took up the torch on the history project.
Yes, he did. He did. Museum. He did. He worked long and hard and tirelessly to take and get that, you know, set in motion and set forth. And besides that, you know, he you know, one of the original marchers up in Washington during the AIDS crisis to fight for our rights. There's so many great moments. You know, if you go back and you look at Joel's page of history moments that he was able to be a part of, to take in and shape our community to make it so much better for all of us.
Very true.
I love that. And the thing that stuck out that you kept saying about that he unified a lot of people over different
he did.
backgrounds and things.
One of the best blessings, as you know, when we found out that he unfortunately was not going to be with us too much longer, and we had his quinceanera, because Joel was a leap year baby, so he would have turned 15 this year in February, but of course he didn't live to see his 15th. So we had his life celebration before that, and you know, so many of you guys hopefully got to see that, you know, through Watermark documenting it and people broadcasting live. And I can literally say that that was probably the greatest moment or event out of anything that I've been to. Just the love and the joy for a person, for him to be able to be there and actually see it, and for all of us to feel the sorrow and also to feel the joy. So even in his passing, and even when he was getting ready to pass and cross over, he was still bringing us together and unifying. So
and
that was Joel.
that,
I saw him.
We allies is a new term,
yes.
Relatively new. Did we have many allies or any allies that really stuck out? And I know you said Joel would be one that will connect a lot of different facets to Pride in its early stages.
Are you saying, do we have others right now? Or
do we have like other allies that when Pride started, who was any other major allies that were able to help Pride get off the ground and assist in and make sure that we had stability to even put on the shoestring event, as we've all said here?
Well, the community by 2005 had matured quite a bit, and we had already worked in from 2000 to 2002 to amend the city code to include sexual orientation in the policy So we had made a lot of connections politically, we had a lot of eyeballs on us on the news for those 2 years. And so by the time 2005 rolled around, we had, PFLAG sticks in my mind, right away. But there were all kinds of other organizations that had formed since the first parade that took place in 1991. And when I was talking about the parade falling apart before we took over in 2005, that wasn't the original group, Orlando Regional Pride Parade. They were awesome. I think it was 5 years, the Orlando Regional Pride Parade did the parade. And I know that they dealt with all kinds of issues, similar issues that we had dealt with the chamber and doing our business expos, such as Lake Eola one year had said that they couldn't have anything at the park because it had been double booked. We had that same kind of thing happen with the Maitland Civic Center, where we tried to have our business expo there. And once they found out that it was a gay event, we're double booked. So we had to go to court on that. So meanwhile, while all these things are happening, we're getting the press coverage, and the press coverage was starting to change too. And that was something that we, really worked on over the years to make sure that we were representing the business side of our community and never excluding anyone, don't get me wrong, but that we were serious professional people, that what you had talked about in the first seat at the table, our constitutional rights, and that we were advocating for what we were doing for our community as a whole, for everyone. That I kind of ran off, and I'll do that now. Hey, I just turned 60. What can I tell you? Sometimes I don't even remember what I was talking about. Did that answer your question, Reggie?
So with that, we seem we have a lot of challenges over the years, and I think I'm gonna ask you, Gina, what's the challenge from our past you feel that we've overcome within the confines of Pride in our current state?
Well, I know when I first got involved, we were dealing with protests. There were hate groups who were showing up. We were just moving past discouraging the KKK from showing up. So this kind of meshes with your earlier question in reference to allies. And we found over the years, and certainly during my tenure, that City Hall started to become a great ally for us. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Mayor Dyer and his administration, Patty Sheehan, the city council, they were there for us. And in tow was OPD. We had LGBTQ liaisons on the police department, and they knew us and we knew them. We knew who to go to when there was an issue or someone, there were protesters showing up and that kind of thing. So, allies like Mayor Dyer, I think of Captain Jim Young, who was an amazing, still is. We do workshops together across the country, but allies in places where we really needed them. And that was City Hall, law enforcement, and then the overall community. And we found, and this is one of the most joyful things that I remember about Come Out with Pride, is during my tenure, Wells Fargo was a big supporter of ours through funding, but mainly they would show up for the parade with their amazing Wells Fargo stagecoach, right? Everyone loved the Wells Fargo stagecoach. And at the time, we had this tradition, and Dr. Dave might have started this, but the president got to ride on top of the stagecoach with our Grand Marshal. And I had the honor of sharing the stagecoach with people like Greg Louganis, people like Stuart Milk, who has become a great friend since then. But that was when I got to meet and talk with Stuart Milk for the first time. And those relationships and that experience of them sharing our pride in Orlando is something that they carry with them and they share those stories with other people. And I like to think that Orlando's Come Out with Pride is emblematic of what a pride should look like. And I hope that that's the experience that our grand marshals take with them as they travel.
I think that was a really good answer. Is there, Dr. Dave, I'm going to ask you the same question. Are there any challenges that you've experienced in the beginning that you see that we have overcome as an organization, as you've experienced it from being the producer side to actually being a participant and actually coming to Pride?
I think it's, kind of the same things. I mean, I know that it was always very challenging for us back in the early days to, make sure that we had enough funding to be able to put on the event that we wanted to put on. And, and most of that was a wing and a prayer. I remember, many years that, most of our funding didn't come in until September. And then we had to rely on, bar sales to, kick it up to the top. So we didn't know until Monday, where we were at. So that was pretty scary. And so, I mean, certainly that, I don't know what, I'm sure that, look, no nonprofit doesn't have, funding struggles, but, so I'm sure that it's, it still happens today. But I think, along with what Gina was saying, too, is just the the government environment, the people in Central Florida. Now you go to the parade and there's so much families and people that just come and that may not even have any connection to our community, but they're like, man, this event is great, and so they just come for that. So I think it's just the acceptance and and really not just from the community at large, but also from the institutions that, we routinely had to deal with to get the event off the ground.
I love that. And we got an audience question that came in. I think, Dr. Dave, I think you can help us with this one. The audience question was, Pride used to be in late June. What inspired the switch to October?
That's really a Debbie question, because that was her decision.
Debbie.
Well, it melded all together to change it to October because of the parade failure so late in June of 2005 that we had to find something to anchor the event. We'd always thought, I did especially, oh my gosh, it's so hot in June, but now it's just hot in October. I mean, and now we face hurricanes in October too. So, but that was a big part of it. But we had to find something to anchor the event in October. So we looked to the students at GLBSU to bring in the National Coming Out Day, which is in October, the 11th. And then National Gay and Lesbian History Month is October. And so those three things were really the pillars for making October successful as far as changing it. And then, having that anchor with the press and with the community. And it was an educational process too about, everybody knows about National Coming Out Day, but National Gay and Lesbian History Month, and the importance of maintaining our history, especially our local history. So we drew that into it as well. And then the first year, when we had the event end at the History Center, Orange County History Center, across the street from Lake Eola, the students, they put together this awesome, everybody chipped in and made all of these storyboards. And we put the storyboards all inside of the History Center. They hung them, and everybody was wearing bright yellow shirts. So everybody went from outside to inside, and then they were viewing the history of Orlando, Orlando Regional Pride, and all of the other groups came together to represent the history of our movement in Central Florida. And if you think about the
Well,
politics,
that question.
go ahead.
Well, I'm glad you can clear that up. That's a question we get all the time, and a lot of people nowadays don't know the significance of changing from June to October. So that was glad you enlightened us, because that was something I was even wondering as I was coming on through this Pride experience. And then I think this is a question for each of you. I think this is important to really reflect on. It's a reflection question. I'm gonna start with Darren.
Okay.
What's something you're prideful about in regards to your involvement with being engaged with Orlando's Prideful history?
I think just I'm prideful of seeing how it has evolved and how the community has accepted and grown. Like Dr. was talking about, how so many come to Pride now that just come to enjoy the celebration. Being a gay man and having a mother and her children walk up to you and the mom say, my daughter and my son, they want to give you something that they made because they care. They see love. And when you see that, that's something that I'm thankful for, that I'm appreciative of, and that I'm grateful that through all these years of Pride, of Come Out with Pride, and those that before it, that legacy continues to grow and make it where it's inclusive for all, and that we all can take in love and spread that love.
Oh, I love that. I love all of that. Because I have not experienced that as well. It's make me emotional, though I'm not gonna do it today. Gina, what are you most prideful about in your part of our prideful history here in Orlando?
There's so much about Pride to be proud of. How it's grown, our corporate sponsors, the exposure. But I think what I'm most proud of is how it brings community together. And it really, I think, and we don't even realize it, that how many people it affects, it changes their lives because they see how many people there are like them out there who are there being their authentic and true selves, and it gives them, strength internally to know that they're not alone. And, anecdotally, I have a personal story that speaks to me so strongly about Pride, is that I had a relative who knew about my journey. He lived out of state. He lived in a very conservative state. And he would, after I transitioned, he started emailing and asking a lot of questions. His wife had died. He was kind of questioning his sexuality. And I was telling him how I was involved in our Pride event coming up. And so he came down to Pride. And after experiencing Orlando Pride, he went back to his very conservative life, his conservative family, his conservative job, and he decided to come out. And now he's happily married. Him and his husband live in a beautiful condo over on the beach. And he relates that many times to participating in Pride gave him the strength to take that step, to know he wasn't alone, to know he could truly do this even though the odds were against him. It gave him the strength to be his authentic self and to be able to live his truth. So that's what it means to me when I see all of those young people, all ages really at Pride, and the energy that's just so infectious at the Come Out with Pride events. It speaks to that anecdote within my own family.
Oh yes, that was a beautiful story. I love hearing everyone that comes and feels they are part and they can discover themselves, because we're open and free to do that. Dr. Dave, what is your most prideful part of being a part of our Pride history here in Orlando?
Well, I think that we are really fortunate to have such a beautiful setting in order to have our event. We're so lucky in this city to have, Lake Eola to have this event because, a lot of towns don't have a backdrop like that. And so it really enhances the whole event. And what I'm proud of is that when, my husband and I take our daughter, to the Pride events now, is that this event just looks so professional. It looks so professional. It looks so well done. It looks so well put together. And, and of course, we all know the hair pulling horror that's going on behind the scenes, but it looks so professional. And personally, what I am really grateful for is the experience that it taught me of essentially running a company, because I don't think that 26 Health would exist today if I hadn't had that experience in, leading the Pride event for those years and really understanding what it's like to, run a company with, 30 employees essentially.
Correct. Oh gosh, but we appreciate you, and we're so glad that you had that experience, so that we can have 26 Health, which is a major part of our community right now, and it gives us so much support. We applaud you for all you do, Dr. Dave, and we thank you.
Thank you,
Miss Debbie. Same question for you. What are you most proud of as you're one of the inaugural members of this Pride history?
One of the old folks. Truly one of the old folks. Hearing these stories. I mean, this has been what it's always been about. When I first, Pride is so huge, but following along with Joel and all the others that have gone before us, and then the ones that went before them, I've done a lot of, I've been away from Pride and the Business Association, the Chamber now for 12 years. So it's been really a time to reflect on all of it. And to me, it appears like a true relay race. And what you said, Gina, about the young people and that story you tell about your family member, that never gets old. It reminds me of the first year that when we carried the rainbow flag down the streets of Orlando, and gosh, help me with his name, Bob Azarito.
Yes.
Yes, he volunteered for years. I don't know if he's still volunteering.
I think I saw him last year. I think he's still.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Still doing it. The first year, he and I carried the parade together, and he told me later, he was a teacher up in Deltona, I believe, and he had lived his life closeted, and he was in his 60s, and I think he was in his 60s at that time, that year, 2005, and he come out with Pride. And he has been out and proud ever since, and contributing everything of himself to our community. And I think of the people that long before went before us. Harvey Milk. He was actually assassinated the year I graduated from high school. And so I was at that time closeted. Really, everything that I heard about the Stonewall riots, the March on Washington in '87, Harvey's assassination, I was reading everything that I could, find. And back then it was a totally different time. We had no social media, no internet. We were lucky to have a phone with a party line. Do you know what that is, Reggie? You know what a party line is? It's kind of like this, where you can have, you're trying to call somebody, there's 5 other people on the phone. Anyway, it's a relay race, and we're passing the torch. And so each of us that have done our parts and still doing our part on some level, you've taken the torch. And all of, like David said, that's what I see too, is the professionalism, the production, the continuation of all of the growth in the community. I feel that there's no way that we would have had the reaction to something horrific as Paul's had it not been for the continual building in this community. And to go there and see what you were talking about with the children and the families and everybody together, every walk of life, every age, having a great time, being authentic, what Gina said, being their true selves, and inspiring others to pick up that torch and keep moving. Because who would have ever thought in 2020 we would be looking at what we're looking at right now? It's very tragic and overwhelming. A lot of days for me. It makes me want to get back on the streets again. But I'm a little bit, I think, past that. But I appreciate all of you that are, and I want the community to know that whatever you can do, it matters. And just living an authentic life, loving yourself. Joel would always say that.
Exactly. Be kind, treat yourself right. Joel's favorite word, treat yourself right.
Treat yourself right. And
treat yourself right.
We will get through this period as well. But we've got to continue that relay race.
Thank you, Debbie, for that. We have another audience question for you guys. I think this is going to go to the past board presidents. Feel free to answer this question, and I'm going to shorten it a little bit. There's a situation known as pink washing, where corporations only invest in Pride once a year and not year round. How did you work under your presidencies with partners to ensure that you're pushing important changes like non-discrimination policies and equal wages? How did you make sure that they're not just using Pride for their marketing intentions and really an ally to the organization under your leadership?
I didn't have corporate sponsors. That wasn't a thing that existed back in my day. So I have to plead not applicable to me because it wasn't a thing.
Well, we had Darden in the beginning. Remember, they contributed money. They contributed money, and they actually coached us on how important it was to come out with Pride as a 501c6 so that we could get charitable contributions. Because they could only give us a small amount of money. I'm trying to think. It was very limited, very limited. It was what you said before. It was the small businesses that were the backbone.
But Darden did invite us to come to their headquarters down South Orlando. I can't remember. John Young. They did invite us to come down. I remember at least once a year, and and provide information to the employees, and there would be like an information expo. So they were very open, and I think that's probably why they were probably one of the first companies that stepped up for us.
Right. They funded actually the first couple of years the history tent, the air conditioned tent in the park. Right. And so Jason and I couldn't remember if you went to that lunch. I believe her name was Linda Gonzalez with Darden. And I think we went to a Red Lobster, imagine that, or Olive Garden. She coached us and they gave us $5,000 each year to provide that air conditioned tent in the park to keep the artifacts in an air conditioned environment instead of having them in the heat in the park.
I do remember that now. So yes, thank you for that. Yeah, I do remember that now. So they were committed to our community and doing more than just trying to garner the pink dollar, because they were really, really supportive of the history exhibit.
And the other corporate money that we received was from it was beer and wine, and I'd have to go look at
Southern.
Southern was one, and then who was another? There was a couple that contributed a substantial amount of money, and of course they wanted to promote their products, of course.
Wayne Dench.
I have all the paperwork. If anybody's interested in ever looking at all of it, and someday, hopefully, somebody can take it all. But I've got all those documents, and well, it's 20 of those huge plastic bins, and it's somewhat organized now. I've got all the Pride stuff organized, but it was very limited though, and that's why it's hard to believe even that we had funding then, because we were always in a panic about how we were going to pay for things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
That's a really important question, Christopher. Thank you for asking that, because as we know, that's an issue with prides all across the country in reference to companies that it's not just lip service, that they truly walk the talk in reference to providing a welcoming and inclusive workplace. So I think during my tenure, our sponsors weren't just involved with Pride, but they were involved with the chamber as well. Like I said, we did mixers. We would do transgender cultural competency workshops with their D&I departments. We did other events with our ERGs. So I think it really is a process where it can't be just that one touch. Here's the check, we'll be in the parade, but do they truly walk the talk? Is their corporate culture truly LGBTQ inclusive? And having that interaction from all aspects of the organization, I think, is what ensures that, and what really builds stronger relationships between Pride and their corporate partners.
That's great. Oh, this is all great insight. The things that a lot of people wouldn't know from being in the, we're in the trenches of Pride every year. So there's lots of things that we do, and we're in the community, but that people want to know that we don't necessarily, through the craziness of putting together Pride, that we don't have to necessarily stop and have an open conversation like this about the aspects of Pride. One question that's come up a lot in terms of diversity and inclusion, how do you feel the LGBTQIA community needs support? How in what ways do we need support in being inclusive and getting that diversity of support in our community?
I'll take a stab at that. And really, I think that I'll be brief, but this really emerged from Pulse, right? We had, after Pulse, the community came together and we had that first very large town hall. And what emerged from that was that we realized that everyone did not have a seat at the table. Most notably, the Q Latinx community was not represented, but they were so disproportionately impacted by the violence of Pulse. And I think that not only led to the emergence of the One Orlando Alliance forming, but it also, I think, taught us a valuable lesson that sometimes we need to pause and ensure that everyone has a voice at the table, like today. Are we truly representing, are we truly giving voice to all the diversity which makes up the LGBTQIA plus community? We've seen that recently, during COVID-19. As I said, it's kind of ripped off the scab to show all these inequities across the country, and everything from healthcare to, racial inequities in law enforcement, incarceration issues, healthcare, et cetera. So we need to constantly, I think, reevaluate ourselves as a community to ensure that everyone has a voice, everyone has a seat at the table, and everyone is being supported for the greater good of our community.
And I would say, for my side, my area now is health access and health care equity, which something that I and 26 Health believe very strongly in. But we are a very diverse organization. For an organization of 45 people, over 47% of our staff are African American or Latinx. Spanish is spoken in every single department of our organization. And it's not just frontline employees. We have, people of color who are, supervisors, managers, and of course, my husband is who's my co-CEO, is Black. So we have an enormous amount of diversity. Also, we have the capability of speaking Creole, Portuguese in our organization as well. And we have all of the letters are represented too. We have people who identify as LGBT. We have non-binary people. So I feel very proud that and everyone gets their voice, and everyone gets to bring not only their identity to the 26 Health table, but they get to bring their passion, and they get to extend that passion into the communities, their communities that they want to increase healthcare access to. So that's kind of where I see it. You've got to stop that.
Okay, Dad.
Are you done yet, Dad?
Dad duty never stops. This is a question. I thank you, Gina, and thank you, Dr. Dave, for those answers. I have a question for Debbie. A lot of people want to know that we give out the Debbie Simmons Award each year. Can you tell us more about that, and why does it hold your namesake?
That should be a question for David and Gina.
It was my idea. Because of the fact that, Debbie had been one of the founding member of the MBA Pride Chamber, and had held the position of board president for so many years. It just seemed natural for me, when I took over, it seemed natural to give her an award for all of her years of service, but then why not name it after her? Because, if there was ever anyone who was an institution for MBA and the Pride Chamber, it's her. So, I personally never won the Debbie Simmons Award,
Well, and, I would have to say that, one of the prides of my life, I've often said that I can die a happy person after being given the Debbie Simmons Community Excellence Award. Debbie has always been an icon, an inspirational leader, a mentor to me, and being given this, last year or 2 years ago, maybe just last year, was such a huge honor for me. And I think it not only recognized the recipient, but it continues to recognize the amazing work that Debbie did for so long. Often people don't realize that Debbie led this effort for
16
years.
Wow.
I think about that. It's like, how did that happen? I mean, I'm not white yet. It's starting to get there now, but it's a hereditary thing. I've been fortunate in that regard. But I think about, I started Shelby Press with my business partner in '93. We had started the MBA in '92. And when I was really leaning on David to run for president, and I had been leaning on him for some time, it was 3 full-time jobs: Shelby Press, the MBA Pride Chamber, and Come Out with Pride. And like you said, by 2007, Come Out with Pride, it truly was. It was a full-time job. I think about that now, and I'm lucky if I can get home, 7 o'clock at night, and I'm collapsing on the couch. So I guess it real, and I appreciate y'all saying what you did. It was an honor, a true honor. I don't have any regrets at all. All of that, I think that's what kept me stable and happy, was seeing so many people be able to live their authentic lives and be happy with themselves. I mean, it was a constant charging of the battery, and it just kept me going. But boy, by the end, I was ready to go. It's like, David, hello, a year and a half, please. And then Gina, you did a fantastic job as president.
Thank you.
I'm sorry you didn't do it longer.
Thank you, Debbie. We applaud your tireless efforts. Without you and your commitment to making this success, we would not be here today. A thriving community, a major pillar, not only here in Central Florida and Orlando, but around the United States, a voice, able to give people a voice like a seat at the table. And it all stems from the commitment you had to the success of Pride in this early days. So thank you again. We'll applaud you, Debbie, for all you've done and you continue to do, as you always answer the call. And before we have a big announcement tonight, I want to ask you, each of you, this question. I'm starting with Gina. What's your hope for the future of Pride? Where do you see us as a Pride going from here?
Could you say that again? You were kind of breaking up.
Okay. I'm sorry, having internet challenges today. But what is your hope for the future of Pride, and where do you see us going from here?
Well, I hope it continues to grow. I hope it continues to empower the community and energize the community, inspire young people to, be the ones who step up, who take the torch and take over, come out with pride and become part of the chamber and continue to move the community forward. I think there's no greater vehicle than come out with pride as far as bringing everyone together in community and inspiring people to know that they're not alone, to know that there are people on that stage who look like them, who sound like them, who are represented in the organization and reflect our diverse community. So I hope that just Pride keeps doing what it's doing. I think when we added fireworks, that may seem like a small thing. It was hugely expensive. It broke our budget, but we didn't realize the impact of that, how that capped off such an amazing week, the Pride Festival, and then that evening having amazing fireworks that just blew the socks off of people, really put a punctuation point in that Pride was here to stay, and it truly arrived. So I just wish continued success and that it keeps growing and it keeps inspiring.
I love that. Same question for you, Darren. What is your hope for the future of Pride?
My hope for the future, basically everything that Gina has just said, but also too that it continues to grow, definitely, that it changes with our community. As our community grows and changes, that Pride grows and changes with it also. There were a few years ago that we didn't have marriage equality, and then we did, and now we have families that have children, gay families that have children, and seeing them at Pride and how our community changes and diversifies and grows, that Pride will continue to do that also. But then also to remember the past, to not forget where everything started and where we came from, and we pay homage to. I feel that some of that in the newer generation, the younger generation, they lose sight of everything that those of us sitting at the table tonight have done for them, so that they could take and have the voices and the life that they have, so that we still remember that we move forward, and that it grows, diversifies, and it just continues to spread the love. There's nothing better, like I said, than when you go to Pride and you see the diversity of the families that are there. with their children, the mothers, the fathers, the moms, the dads, the grandmas, the grandpas, you know, everyone, and how you see the smile, the love, and the laughter on their face, and just the joy and the hopefulness. It gives you spirit. Like we've all said, 2020 is the trying times, but when we can look back on past prides and see where it was and where we can go, and use that as something to take and guide us and to move us and push us forward and give us that hope.
Oh, yes. That was thank you, Darren, for that. Debbie, what is your hope? As you've been there from the beginning, where do you see it going?
Ditto to everything that's been said. And in addition, now we have workplace equality, but it's still not perfect. The continuation, and in the past, I know that the Pride Chamber had working with other chambers, the Hispanic Chamber, the African American Chamber, Asian, did I say Asian? Anyways, to bring in, I mean, now that we've made so many strides and we've learned so much through our own movement and the Black Lives Matter movement, seeing all of that, seeing all of these things that are now being exposed, what Gina was talking about. I've always thought that if we brought all minorities together, we're the majority.
Right.
And if our community could work more in that vein now of bringing in more of the minority communities together as a force for positive change. We've done a lot in Central Florida. I mean, this is a great place to live now, but the state of Florida is still, I mean, you know, politically, it's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
And we can spread it in the state by bringing all the minorities together. And then I'd love to see that go nationwide, because then we could truly have progressive change in the United States. And I believe that the general public is ready for it. And we just can't seem to get over that hurdle. And to endure what we've endured for almost the last 4 years is just, it's awful. I mean, I don't want to get, you know, I try not to get too negative and too down on it. But at the same time, it takes me back to what Darren said. You know, I think about where the community in Central Florida was in the 90s. And then when we had a mayor who was not friendly at all to our community. And we can change. We look at the change that we've made here. We can change the state and we can change the country. And so I hope our community will really step up, you know, in that arena and run for political office. Get involved in making sure that you help people get out to vote. Now I'm gonna.
That was a really good answer. And I know it's always tough with a question like this, Dr. Dave, to go last. But what is your hope for Pride in the future?
Definitely infrastructure. I would like to see Pride get to a point where, you know, they have paid staff, you know, executive director. You know, that definitely moves an all-volunteer organization to the next level and allows that organization to, you know, become more successful in its mission. So, you know, I'm a big vote for infrastructure.
I love that. As the Vice President of Operations, that is something that for me is very important, that we work on, that I work on tirelessly with our organization to make sure that we are able to continue to support and to grow with our community, like Darren said, to evolve with our community. When the community evolves, we have to involve them. That may mean we have to add something. So be able to have a solid foundation so that we can be able to service. And because we are a service organization, we're here for the community. We're here for everyone. And that now that we've talked about the future, I think we have a sneak peek actually of what this year's going to look like. Are we prepared with that?
Hello and welcome. My name is Jeff Christyko, and I am the board president of Come Out with Pride. On behalf of myself, our other 11 board members, and our larger production team, thank you for joining us. We have a lot of good news to share, so let's get started.
When our team met in early March, we anticipated COVID-19 would be a major threat. But at the time, nobody quite forecasted the extent of the situation we've had to face. With many prides around Florida holding events in March and April, it was painful to watch as many postponed or canceled festivities, halting months of hard work and planning. Several groups, including us, switched gears and jumped headfirst into the world of virtual programming. On a wider scale, events like Global Pride 2020 at the end of June helped to fill the gap when over 500 Pride events were halted around the world.
For us here, our event traditionally takes place in October. We had the opportunity to take a much longer wait and see approach. With so many of our business partners and organizations being financially devastated by COVID-19, we knew from the beginning we would not be able to safely or financially support an event as seen in the past years. So we collectively put our heads together and came up with several different scenarios. Then we solicited input from our community, our partners, and our volunteers to find out what they would be most comfortable with. The results vary from those saying holding Pride would be a bright spot in their otherwise grim year, to those who loudly voiced grave concerns over any kind of public gathering.
In late May and into early June, businesses were reopening, and for a while the curve was flattening. There was a hope that we might be able to do an in-person event, albeit on a much smaller scale at Lake Eola. We even considered ways that we could limit attendance, such as buy tickets or charging admission, but these ran counter to our ideals of ensuring that Pride is free for everyone to enjoy. By mid-June, the situation took a turn. And as we all know, Florida is now one of the states that's sadly breaking records with regards to new positive cases and hospitalization rates.
No matter how many safety protocols we could put into place at Lake Eola, our entire board unanimously agreed that we could not risk putting the lives of our community in harm's way. To that end, it should come as no surprise that we will not be having a traditional Come Out with Pride at Lake Eola this year. That said, we want to make it clear, Pride's not canceled. We simply will be celebrating in a different way come October 10th. In just a few moments, we'll share some of our exciting plans.
Why is Pride important anyway? We've been asked this lately, especially in comparison to all the recent crises. Pride means many different things to different people, but one undeniable fact is that it puts a spotlight on our community and greatly increases our visibility. Without Pride, we are losing our momentum to fight for and educate others about the issues still affecting us. Now, it would have been easy for us to call it a day and save our money, time, and energy for next year. However, what's easy isn't what's always right. Pride allows our collective voices to be heard, and our team agreed that we needed to be innovative to ensure that's still going to happen.
By late March, we had shifted gears and were hard at work bringing you virtual shows to your screens. Many of you tuned in to watch our Staying with Pride series featuring local performers and talents. Through those efforts, we helped raise over $16,000 for the Central Florida LGBTQ+ Relief Fund, an ongoing effort which immediately provided funds to those desperately in need. In June, we started our first A Seat at the Table, a monthly series created with the goal to have community-based, candid conversations about issues that face us all.
Now that we've gotten our virtual feet wet, it's time to kick it up a notch. On October 10th, our supersized virtual extravaganza will feature performances from some of your favorite local and national talent. in addition to fun, local personality interviews, special guest stars, and more than a few surprises. During the broadcast, we also plan to showcase many of the local businesses and organizations you would find at our vendor marketplace. We want to be sure they don't lose the opportunity to share their products and services with you, our community. More details will be released soon about how you can be included, so be sure to follow our social media or subscribe to our newsletter to stay connected.
Now, as you know, Come Out with Pride is more than just a single day celebration. And for a while, we've even held an entire week-long series of events. Even with COVID-19, we've still been brainstorming how we can make this happen without large gatherings. So first up, the Drag Race 5K is back, but in virtual form. Participants can run 3.1 miles during Pride weekend wherever and whenever they choose, and we'll even have medals and a few prizes for top finishers. We're once again partnering with the Zebra Coalition, so look for more details and registration information soon. And in addition to the race, we're also planning some social distance-friendly events like a drive-in movie night and more. We know others in the community also will have a lot of great ideas on how to safely celebrate Pride, and we look forward to sharing and promoting those on our calendar as well.
What if we brought Pride to you? For our final edition to the Come Out with Pride 2020 lineup, we are announcing the largest car caravan parade the city has ever seen. Taking place around Orlando and surrounding neighborhoods, we are anticipating a couple hundred Pride decorated cars participating, blasting our anthems and making sure everyone knows that we are still showing our pride. You may be wondering, how big will it be?
Well, with a route over 15 miles long, there will be no problem socially distancing when coming out to watch this. Our course will take us past many of our local LGBTQ+ establishments and landmarks, signifying we're all still very much connected. We'll also feature our traditional lineup of grand marshals, local officials, as well as highlight the Black Lives Matter movement, along with other very important causes. So while the vehicles may be going a bit faster than the floats and marchers would around Lake Eola, we think this will be a fun and meaningful way to bring us together into the real world and let us cheer and wave to all the friends we've missed. Details on how to watch or participate in the caravan will be announced over the next few weeks.
So there you have it. This October, you'll be able to enjoy a week of events, a massive car caravan parade, and a fabulous online show filled with great entertainment and plenty of surprises. Like everyone else, we were disappointed early on knowing we couldn't have the Come Out with Pride experience in 2020 we'd become accustomed to. But if there's one thing this community excels at, it's our ability to tackle a challenge head on and help each other out in the process. This year, we have a responsibility to ensure we keep one another safe, especially for those in our community who are potentially more at risk. Let's do so in a way that keeps the spirit, energy, love, and joy associated with Pride alive. We know that someday in the future, we'll all be sharing hugs and memories together at the park again. But until then, we hope that on October 10th, you'll join us as we celebrate a very unique Orlando Come Out with Pride.
Yes, so we wanted to continue the work that we've started. As you know, there's a lot of Pride that's canceled. And are you guys excited for the new kind of Pride this year?
Definitely.
Wonderful. Yes.
I can ride in a car.
Is that air conditioning in a car? Hello?
Well, I love that you guys are on board, and I'm glad that we got your approval and your support for this. And we really want to say thank you to the community for watching with us today. Thank you, Gina, for coming and joining us today. Thank you, Darren, for spending time with us.
It was an honor to share
Dr.
the
Dave
stage
as well.
with this amazing group.
I love this, and thank you, huge thank you to Debbie, as you've gotten us here with what the thought you started so long ago. You've gotten us here, and with all the contribution of everyone in this panel, we appreciate you, and we appreciate you at home for spending time with us here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for keeping the community safe.
Yes.